Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and today we're going to talk about uh, reward systems in tabletop role playing games. And I thought we would begin this conversation, of course, here. Ooh, I can't see what's happening on my screen. There we go. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Here we talk about game design and inspiration about all things tabletop role-playing games. Hopefully we won't have to go too deep and too far into this, but I thought I'd like to share some of my ideas, and maybe if you are intent on game design and that sort of thing. Hey, the End King. Uh, I like to get on the same page when it comes to talking about different subjects. And while we all talk about the exact same subjects, sometimes we use different language or different definitions of a thing. And so I thought we would, kind of get together and talk about these things. And I want to start this out with talking about my specific hypocrisy when it comes to reward systems. So we're going to talk about game design and reward systems, and this is included with experience, like experience points, level systems. We're going to talk about the different types or how they are applied reward systems. And we're going to start with hypocrisy, and I'm going to use myself as an example. So much like piloting rules, shipbuilding rules, empire building rules, hacking, crafting systems, sometimes reward systems are done this way as well. Meaning, like, I'll play in a game and I will want to know what the experience point system or experience level system is in the game, and then never use it. It's like I want to know what I can achieve, but then I've played in games where my character hasn't advanced at all, and I've completely enjoyed those games for everything. yeah, using DM using different terminology. Rocks fall, everyone go fish. Yeah, instead of everyone dies. So, so reward systems. Now, reward systems to me are some can be extremely immediate at the table. Like the minute a player does something, they get a reward for doing that thing. And we're going to talk about games and game systems that reward bad behavior, unoptimized behavior, or sometimes it can be, when we say unoptimized, sometimes it's like, well, what's the goal of playing this game? Like, is the surface level of the game the veneer, but there's something underneath it? And does your game, either you're designing a game or you're learning to play a game, does it explicitly tell you what the heck is going on? So let's begin with our reward system. I have on the side of the screen an example of my specific example, so we can all be on the same page. And we're going to start with the stick and carrot. So stick and carrot refers to the idea of getting a stubborn old mule to get to do what you want. And human beings, we as human beings, are often motivated by the stick or the carrot. The stick is the punishment. The stick is, if I don't do this behavior, I'm going to get punished. I'm going to get hurt. I will have a drawback. I won't advance correctly, something like that. I'm going to get beaten about the head and shoulders. The carrot is the reward. Ooh, I'm going to get a benefit if I perform this behavior. And many us human beings are motivated by stick and carrot all day long, all the time in our lives. Take a look at some of for those of you that work in an environment with other employees, look at them. You have some employees that are go-getters, gung-ho. They're like, listen, if we all work together, we can get this thing done. We can get out of here early. This will work smoothly. Then you have those other employees that are like, listen, I don't feel like lifting a hand. And until the boss tells me to do something, or I'm going to get in trouble, I'm going to continue my bad behavior until I'm punished. Take a look at many of our civil laws, that things like speed limits, property barriers, public displays of destruction and things like that, and public displays of affection, things like that. We have different rules in our society. Some people don't perform heinous acts like theft and assault and murder because of the fear, the stick of getting hurt. Others are like the carrot, like, hey, if we all treat each other well, maybe society will be better. You know, so and different people perform that in different ways. Like, of course I'm going to speed down that canyon road because there's no police, because I'm going to get away with it. Right? And then there's others that are like, well, I'm going to obey the speed limit because I don't want to die, and so on. So stick and carrot role-playing games. So for those of you that have just joined role-playing games in the past 5 years or so, very few of those games have stick functions in them. But if you go 10 years and in the past, especially classic Dungeons and Dragons, if you picked a particular character type, you acted outside of your alignment, your paladin didn't follow their oath or whatever, then you got the stick. If you didn't perform an action in a particular manner or way or by choice or whatever, you got the stick. You got hurt. Your character advancement was reduced. You received a penalty. And so you were beaten about the head and shoulders. If you picked a certain character type, elf, gnome, halfling or something, orc, you had penalties to some of your statistics. And you were lesser than the other characters, less intelligent, less charismatic, less constitutionally enhanced, lower strength, something like that, before you got your benefit. In current parlance, that kind of thing doesn't really happen. More or less, if you can choose to engage in a behavior, and if you choose to engage in the optimal behavior, you get the carrot, which means you get the reward. There is the classic alignment system from Dungeons and Dragons has been much maligned because it didn't feel like you got much benefit for following it, but you got unfairly punished for not following it. All stick, very, very little carrot. Now, some game systems, it's implied carrotisms versus stickisms, and sometimes if it's not spelled out correctly, or players don't feel that they're being rewarded for the good thing, that they only feel they're being punished for the bad thing. I would put a game like Legend of the Five Rings, or a samurai knighthood behavior funnel type of role-playing game falls into this kind of category, where if you're into the game, you know you're receiving a benefit for acting in the manner in which the game suggests that you act, like a knight, like Pendragon, or like a samurai in Legend of the Five Rings. And you gain benefits, your character gains benefits by acting in their particular behavior. You act outside that behavior, you get punished. And when you act within the behavior, you realize on your character sheet, oh, I have access to these things if I only behave in that predicted manner. There are, I bring up Vampire the Masquerade very often on this channel. I'm a fan of the first edition of the game, and in it there is something known as nature and demeanor. Now, in your character, you don't have to act within your nature and demeanor. Your demeanor is what you act outwardly, and they have a chart. They have types that you can choose, and your nature is what's inside. You may hide it, or you may not even express it very often, and others may not know what your nature is, but you still have that on your character sheet. And if you act within your nature and demeanor, you gain willpower, and willpower are like extra dice or automatic successes to advance your storyline. You don't have to act within your nature and demeanor, but if you do, you get the carrot. And so in game design, you may want to consider, like, what behavior do you want to see in your game, and how is that rewarded? Some games are thematic, like horror games, Call of Cthulhu. Well, in a horror game, there's some behaviors there are even movies that make fun of it. The Scream franchise makes fun of characters behaving in a way that is completely suboptimal, but they even do it in the movie in the Scream franchise, the characters in the movie know that they are acting non suboptimally, and they do so anyway. And in many horror games, the game system has a carrot stick, may have carrot stick mechanisms in it that reinforce, hey, listen, you are supposed to run to the most the dark corner of the building and not get in your car and escape and say, hell no, I'm not staying in a building where the walls are bleeding and there's ghosts and all that kind of stuff. Like, no, I'm getting the hell out of here. um, yeah, that's a possibility that your game system, or you may want to think about your game system about suboptimal behavior. Now we're going to go into something that's very similar to this stick and carrot system, which is exchange and economy. And exchange and economy, for me, in a tabletop role playing game, is one in which um, players either the player and or GM want to see certain behaviors, and we exchange or give out something that encourages that behavior, and it happens in real time at the table when we engage in that particular behavior. So Cypher system does this with a GM intrusion. Blades in the Dark does this with a devil's bargain. I believe there's other terminology for like a devil's bargain, in which, hey, uh, you your character is in a good position. Your character is safe. In Cypher system, say something like Numenera. Oh, sorry about that, Drew. It seems like I got the stick today, having a night migraine. Ooh, sorry, I cannot say that hey, behaved in a manner that I deserve that. Yeah, you didn't do that. You got all stick and none of the carrot on that. Sorry about that, Drew. And I don't suffer from migraines, but I had a family member and a family friend that engaged them, and they are horrible. So sorry about that. I hope my enthusiastic vocalizations do not disrupt your mental stability. So, exchange and economy is a a at the table instant use. We're going to engage in something that goes back and forth. So, yeah, yep. Yeah, yeah, and King, I'm the exact same way. Yeah, the end King says, Drew, cash in your penny and get some rest. Looking at the bright screen ain't going to help. Exactly. Uh, so, uh, an exchange system is players want to achieve something. The game master hands out the thing: Benny, Moxie, fate points, hero points, inspiration, willpower, luck, whatever the case may be, and to achieve that goal. And there might be a give and take in the exchange. The give and take is probably some mixing of stick and carrot. For example, Devil's Bargains in Blades in the Dark is like, oh, you can get more dice for success, but here's the deal: you have to come up with a setback that will take place no matter what happens when you roll the dice. This setback will take place. That setback could be the guards hear you when you're trying to pick the lock, or the bartender you're trying to bribe later on gives away your plans for a heist or something of that nature. And in many games, the devil's bargain is a meta game, out of the game discussion that the player then, within the game, we all decide what happens within the game and how does that happen. So for an example, maybe a player is piloting a starship through a dangerous asteroid field, and the player's like, my piloting skills are not the greatest and we need to get away from our enemy. Okay, GM, I'll take a devil's bargain. I need a couple of more dice, a couple of 5 or 6 more dice to roll to get through this asteroid field. And the GM may go, okay, I'll give you the dice, but what are you willing to pay for? And a devil's bargain could be getting rid of something important with the character, or burning a resource that the character has. And sometimes, especially in Powered by the Apocalypse, sometimes the action happening at the moment, piloting through asteroid field, has nothing to do with what the character is willing to give up or burn or lose in this transaction of gaining more dice. Maybe it's a connection with a loved one. We see this very often in superhero games where Spider-Man really is fighting a bad guy, but Aunt May needs her medicine. And Peter Parker has the explanation for Spider-Man beating up, I don't know, one of his elemental villains like the Scorpion or Hydro Man or whatever, the Rhino or something like that. And yes, he gets more dice to beat up the bad guy, but he's forgotten to pick up Aunt May's medicine. Or he doesn't realize that Aunt May's been trying to call him because she calls an ambulance and goes to the hospital. And so Batman is very common with Batman. Batman's fighting crime in the dark streets, but he forgets about Wayne Enterprises, and suddenly there's a corporate takeover, or there are neighbors that are complaining about Wayne Manor or something, or the power goes out at Wayne Manor and there's flooding in his cave and basement, and workers are trying to get in or something like that. And the two may have no relationship to each other, but there are systems where there's like exchange and economy. Now, exchange is, hey, game masters, like the GM intrusion from Cypher system, the GM may say, all right, players, your life is going very nice and normal and sweet. I want to intrude in your life and make your life more complicated. I want guards to show up. I want your reputation to be sullied. I want the weather to turn bad. I want this heist to go wrong. And so a GM intrusion is, I want to make your life more complicated. And in exchange for that, I'm going to give you, in Cypher system, it's an experience point, but I'm going to give you a bennie, a reward, this thing happens to you that's bad, but I'm going to give you something else that's going to benefit you in the future. And those systems, we of course can borrow, steal, have an homage to many of these systems, and these are reward systems that happen immediately at the table. Yeah. The Yanking says, I was going to say about horror characters behaving suboptimally, that's real when our adrenaline courses through your body. Oh yeah, people do. Now, mind you, as players, let's be honest, most of us tabletop role players are pretty brilliant. And we know these genres like the back of our hand. We know the classic, like there's the classic commercial, like, hey, we're being hunted. Let's hide behind the dangling chainsaws. Should we run to the running car and drive out of here? No. Let's hide behind the chainsaws. Wait, I know a better idea. Let's run into the house and run up into the attic or down into the dark basement. Yeah, that's smart, right? And you see the mask wearing killer just shaking his head like, seriously, like, you're making this far too easy, right? But that suboptimal behavior is desired in certain themes, especially horror. There's certain action movie things where it's like, do I stop the bomb or save my loved one? The moral quandaries and things of that nature. And we love that kind of stuff. But it also means, as players, choosing to do the thing that's going to cause the setback to my character. And Powered by the Apocalypse very much embraces the failing forward, succeeding with a cost, the yes, no, if, and, or buts that I like to bring up. and when you have your yes, no, if, and, or buts, and you don't have a simple pass fail system, sometimes there can be this open meta discussion like, okay, what's a terrible thing that can happen to my character, but I still succeed? And in a lot of our stories, we see this happen. Our character is very competent. They break into the place, they open up the safe, they get the documents out of the safe, but then maybe they're encrypted, maybe they are being tracked, maybe the bad guy knew the hero was going to steal the documents and traces them to their lair or whatever, or base of operations or something. So it's not about the character failing. It's like, oh, they succeed, but there's all these other complications that happen in the middle of it. Many heist movies, spy movies do this all the time. Mission Impossible and Jason Bourne movies, 007 James Bond movies do this all the time. No, the character's a badass. Things just keep happening around the character that just keeps making things worse and worse. The End King says, watch random people get into a street fight. They don't behave like level 12 fighters. They don't use all their actions optimally. Oh, yeah. you are so right. As a matter of fact, most criminals aren't the brightest either. Like the criminal that walks into a business without a mask on, being recorded on all the cameras, then walks to the back of the store to put the mask on to act like they're hiding their identity. And you're like, dude, you walked into the place without a mask on. We know it's you. You have the exact same clothes on. Like it's not that difficult to find you. I know, guess what, by the way, everyone has a phone. There's like cameras everywhere nowadays. It's broad daylight, right? Yes, we do see random people getting like random street fights, and they overextend themselves. Their adrenaline is pumping, so that is a very common thing there. The End King, and as a matter of fact, this isn't me bragging, but as a person who has practiced martial arts for a very long time, you'll know that when your adrenaline gets to a certain point, your vision, you get tunnel vision, physically, psychologically and literally, where all you have is fight or flight, and you forget all the techniques you've ever learned. And that's why learning martial arts has to become more muscle memory than learning a million and one techniques. It's really about knowing 5,000 techniques and finding like the top three that work best for you, like the top 3 to 5. Some of the best martial artists in the world only have like literally a handful of techniques that they've mastered, and they've studied a lot of them, but they're like, you know what, these 5 work for me. I'm going to learn these till they're unconscious inside. So yeah, very fun. Let's go to instant and random reward systems. So in tabletop role-playing games, and mind you, all of these are related. So don't act like, you don't presume that I'm going like, well, this is one thing and this is something different. No, they all blend together in terms of game design. And when understanding a game, when you're either playing a new game and you're trying to understand what this game is trying to tell you, or you want to design for your own game. So instant and random. So instant rewards, random rewards. Sometimes when you roll the dice, you will gain an instant reward for having rolled the dice. Sometimes that just could be it's fumbles, or what we call crits. Today we call them crits, so it would be a crit fumble or critical success. Back in the day, we called them fumbles and crits. So if you rolled, say, classic D20, if you rolled a 1 on a D20, you fumbled something. Something happened, and a lot of those tables were pretty much bullshit, right? Like I stabbed myself in the back with my spear and dumb things like that. Some more modern day, and there are people who hate fumble tables because some of the results on fumble tables were pretty ridiculous. I definitely agree with the idea of the ridiculous nature of that, but the fumbling to me doesn't necessarily mean the character is terrible at what they do. What it means is a situation comes up that's so bad that no one saw it coming. And I like introducing the partial success third party kind of isms. It would be like a sniper who has their clear target in mind and gets ready to shoot, and an aide steps in the way, or a bird flies in the way, and the bullet launched from over a mile away impacts something by accident. A truck drives in the way, and it's like, no, the target didn't expect it, and the PC didn't expect it, but this thing happens, and something gets in the way of that thing. Like the king bows down because a aide runs up, or a small child runs up with a message, and it's like the arrow literally strikes where the king's head should have been at the throne, and the crossbow bolt like impacts the chair, and everyone's like, "Ooh, you rolled a 1." I dislike. There's that meme that's going around like, I try to backstab the orc and I roll a 1. I gently caress the orc's back. Like, I think that's pretty ridiculous, right? That's pretty ridiculous. Maybe something else happens, like you go to backstab the orc and orc literally trips and falls, and you're literally standing over the orc like, oops, and the orc turns around and is like, what the hell? Something like that. The orc lets out a really big fart or something, and all their allies turn around and literally look at you standing behind their friend, and their friend is like, "Ooh, that stale burrito! Shouldn't he eat in that gas station sushi?" And all their friends are like, "Let's go get that person about to backstab you." Something silly like that. So it could be just dice rolling. Critical successes are exactly the same way. You roll the dice, the percentages come up in your favor, you get this thing. Now, sometimes it just applies to the exact die roll. Like, oh, I attack the enemy, usually combat, right? I attack the enemy, I do this thing really well, I get to maximize my damage, I get to roll double the dice, I get to do damage to my enemy and something else. I get to act again. Now, sometimes there are systems that reward you, but you don't have to use that reward instantly. You get the instant reward, you don't have to use it at that very moment. So instead of a critical hit or a failure, that's an instant reward system, well, and punishment system. Maybe you gain like inspiration. You rolled a crit. Great. You get to add this thing on your character. And you're like, okay, I've got three of these. I can use them later because I was very lucky when I rolled, but I'm going to save them. I'm going to possibly hoard them for later. There's also random rewards. So a random reward could be a random playing card. We've talked about tarot cards here. Maybe you get a tarot card. It could be a random reward, could be like a magic item, or I need 5 points to achieve or unlock something in my character. The AGE system, is a 2d6 plus 1d6 uh, randomized game system, and characters have capabilities that make them better, but they can only use them if they earn like action points that make them cinematically amazing. And when the 1d6 matches a number rolled on the 2d6, they gain one or more of these action points that make their characters even better. And that's also another random reward. Like, it might be randomized by the dice. There might be random effects that happen in the game. There, of course, in fantasy, you have like wild magic sorcerers and wild magic and things that may, like, oh, roll in this random table, and one or more of these things, maybe not right now, but later on, may add to the character. Randomizing isn't like, it takes a certain type of player that likes randomization, and oftentimes, more often than not, randomization is like ABC 1, 2, 3 storytelling. So very quickly, ABC 1, 2, 3 storytelling is, we always assume ABC always matches up with 1, 2, 3, but instead, when it's random, you have ABC, but now you have to move those building blocks and solve the problems out of order. So A may apply to number two, B may apply to number three, and C may apply to number 1. So sometimes, like, there's a special magic item there's plenty of funky magic items in original Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of them were not mechanical in nature, meaning like they didn't have numbers, but you could use them uniquely. One of my favorite was the Rod of Immovability. It was basically a single, unremarkable iron rod, and you can give it two, you could activate it and deactivate it with a word, a command. If you gave it one activation, it would literally be immovable whenever you said the word. So you could literally throw it in the air, say the command word, and it could not be moved at all by any force, whatever. And if you gave the other command word, it could be moved. The situation is like, how do you use it? How does it solve a problem? And yes, we end up having that magic item in a role playing game. And yes, we had like 5 or more. We used it in a game where it was a volcano that erupted, and the rod got left in the volcano. And for like 5 sessions after that, we kept trying to figure out how to get it back. And we couldn't because the volcano erupted and the rod would not move. And we joked that hey, if our characters are immortal, we could wait for the volcano to literally collapse on itself in like a million geological years for the rod to still be there. Pretty hilarious. But yeah, instant and random rewards can be fun, especially if your game really embraces a gonzo type of OSR type of mechanism, and that randomization can be used later. Like, for example, maybe players could physically exchange some of those randomizers if they didn't like it, or gaining some of those instant rewards is fun to see. It's a little bit of a gambler's high as well, right? Like, yes, I get +7 on my die roll, and I can easily exceed 20 with my pluses, but it's a lot of fun to roll the dice and randomly get a 20. You know, there's a different feeling about that, and it's a little bit of a gambler's high. Hey, Mike, what's going on here? This made a system that bridges the gap between milestone and XP systems. It rewards all the things GMs want from players and develops a risk versus reward economy. Players can spend these rewards on social, combat, or skill checks, or to develop a contact where none exists, or other bonuses, which I love. I love doing that. If they choose to save up to 10 rewards, they could cash in those 10 for a level. Some people dislike that system because that is used in the Cypher system, Numenera. So the reward system is literally experience points. And if you save up the experience points, your character can get better. Like you said, saving up 10 points, you can. I can't remember the exact nature of it, but it's like you start at tier 1 and you can go up to like tier 6, I believe, in Numenera / Cypher system. And if you save your experience points, you can go up a tier, a level. You get better. But it's also an economy. Like, you can spend the economy. I guess I should talk about what economy means. So you can spend it so that you can succeed to get further, which means you're literally expending the experience points that makes your character better. So I like it because I love hard decisions given to players. Some players don't like having that to expend now to give up for our future, but that's how life works, right? And maybe we don't want to be reminded of that. It's like, do I want to spend $20 now or save my $20 to maybe have $40 in the future? Yeah, in 6 years, only 2 players leveled by this method. Yeah, and that ends up becoming a thing, right? Like, it's the mud path walked across the quad at the university, where some designer basically laid all the concrete paths, but really players are going to make their own path, and they walk across the grass and make a mud path. You know, it's that kind of thing where, like, in our heads we think it's going to work this dynamic way, and when it hits the road, it just doesn't work that way. Yeah, Mike says I play a high risk open roll table, so these rewards were spent more often than saved, so they could save the PC's lives. Yep. Also, it depends on how the system. This system is in addition to milestone, right? And I like milestone systems. I think sometimes today they are much maligned, but I like a milestone system. Well, we'll talk about milestones and things like that, because I actually listed that a little bit. I guess I should have typed out milestone, but it is actually down there. The End King says, I like the idea of a boon having a number of complications, giving the heroes a base, but it's falling apart, and there are spiders and rusty nails to look out for. I like that kind of stuff too. Okay, so economy. What is exchange and economy? So economy means a fluid economy means things keep going back and forth. Players get something. GMs take the thing away. GMs give something to players. Players use that thing and give it away. And so some games require an economy. Fate, Blades in the Dark, Numenera has an economy. It is in Cypher system, Numenera, you are supposed to use and abuse your ciphers, which are one-use items that you gain because you know you're getting more. And a game that really reinforces an economy must be embraced by the players, otherwise it comes to a halt and your economy doesn't grow. And there is in Numenera, if you use a cipher that teleports the players to safety, that means you get to use it once and it's done, even though in 3 more encounters we could have used that, but we already used it. And that push and pull is a meta game psychological issue that I love, where it's like, do I use it? Don't I use it? Hey, should you use it? Don't you use it? And at the table, it's the players that go, don't do it, and the other one's like, yeah, we need you to use it. And it's that fun, um, it's that fun back and forth that happens amongst players, where within the meta of the game, that character is choosing, oh no, should I, shouldn't I? And I like that. Yeah, sticks and carrots both given together. I'm with you there, N King. I love both of those. Mike says, you could also use these rewards to fail forward. Yep. Imagine spending a token to gain advantage and still fail. The PC will die. I will offer a chance to fail forward, but it will cost them. We see this more and more often now in indie games, right? Where it's like, oh no, like I can give you extra dice or an automatic success, or yes, you succeed in this thing, but we're gonna have a conversation or pick from a list, or we're gonna discuss what do you lose to gain that automatic success or these extra dice or something like that. We talked about it, devil's bargain, kind of things. Yeah. Mike says, and if another player has a token, they can spend it to allow their fellow player to fail forward. You fall over the cliff, but catch a branch, injuring your arm. And I love those kind of things because honestly, when we watch or engage in our media, we see that a lot, right? Hero One, Lord of the Rings, Caverns of Mordor, the OSHA violating no handrails system, right? They're running down the steps. They're being shot at with crossbows and arrows by the spider climbing goblins and whatnot. And of course, the great heroes are like, I jump across the crevice to jump down the steps and jump across another one. And then we have the other players that are like, ooh, I don't think I'm going to make it. Hey, GM. And then what happens? GM goes, oh, no, devil's bargain. Yeah, you make the jump, but guess what? The next one, the steps are going to start to fall and shift and shatter for the next player. And you're like, I'm taking it. And the other player's like, why did you do that? And now another player's like, all right, well, what I'll do is I'll use a help action to grab the hand of my ally who has to jump even further because of the collapsing steps that are collapsing behind us, right? And I am joking, but I'm also pulling this out of my ass. Like, how would this situation work in a game? And that may be the thing, that happens. Like, hey, we are trying to swim across the raging river. All right, well, my character has terrible swimming skill. Hey, GM, I really need to get to the other side. Okay, I'm going to let you get to the other side, but guess what? You're going to have to make a roll because a very large tree branch fell into the river and is coming towards you. You have to make a saving throw or resistance roll or whatever so you don't get smashed up in the head. No, you're going to make it across the river, but you also may get impacted by this tree branch or something, something like that. And then the other player is like, or maybe there's a rope that everyone's dangling on. It's like, no, you can make it across the river, but the rope snaps. How about that? And they're like, and the other player's like, please don't accept that bargain. Like, oh no, because I want to get across. And the PC's like, dude, I'm in plate armor. I'm a dwarf. I can't swim across this thing. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll get the automatic success, but the rope breaks, and we'll just figure our way out of it, or something like that. Yeah, Anon says economic expectations are one of the most difficult things to establish in game. Yeah, to the point that I try to avoid meta currencies as much as possible. Now, all due respect to you, I completely agree and understand with that sentiment, right? Because it's very difficult to judge meta currencies. Some GMs hate meta currencies because, hey, they're hoping to make this an economy where it goes back and forth and back and forth. What do the players do? They hoard all of it till they get to the big bad evil guy, the BBEG, and then they dump it all to kill the big bad evil guy. And then the GM's like, oh, this is stupid. You just killed my dragon, one-shot at my dragon because of all your bennies. This is stupid, right? That's a real thing that does really happen, where players are like, no, I'll keep failing. Just keep giving me the currency, right? So that's also not a problem. But if you're a game designer and you want to establish a meta currency, how often does that meta currency happen? in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, they specifically said in it, oh, inspiration is a one and done. You get one inspiration, you either have it or you don't. You can't hoard it, you can't, and I know why they said that, and it's because of what you're saying there, Adeline, because if players can hoard 3, 4, 5 of these and just keep dumping advantage on the bad guy, they were trying to avoid that. Not really as useful in practice because there's other things that make initiative, side initiative ruins that kind of thing. So that wasn't the bad thing, but yeah, that's really why I believe, in my armchair analysis, is probably why they did that. Mike says, let's say a player fails a roll, that's a huge deal. I have a single huge D20 in the center of the table. If a player seizes that die, it's a devil's bargain. They can roll that die and get another chance. I love that, yeah. But now the GM gets a token to use just like the PCs can. Now the monsters potentially get all the bonuses the PCs can access with the same currency. There is the Fantasy Flight Star Wars game does a very, very similar thing. The players have died because they hoard tokens without spending them. Yeah. Fantasy Flight Star Wars game does this. It is the light side, dark side. It's basically a white token, black token. I know that sounds horrible in another context, but follow me with this. So you have a thing that flips over from black to white, and it goes back and forth from the game master to the players, game masters to players. And in Star Wars, it actually fits meta-wise within the game world. So the player says, I want to use the light side to gain an advantage, to gain a success. So they take it, and what happens, they flip it from the light side, the white side, over to the dark side. Now it goes back into the game master's hand. The game master goes, okay, you succeed in swinging across the chasm inside of the Death Star. Great, you escaped the bad guys, right? But guess what? The dark side comes up. Darth Vader shows up, right? And slays your mentor. Now what? Or something like. I mean, I don't know. I had to pull that out of my ass, but maybe that's not exactly how that works. But that is a type of meta currency. Instant, random. Right now, here we go. Light side, dark side. You get a bonus, I get a bonus. You get a bonus, I get some. And I really like that. They are trying to do that in the Daggerheart and DC 20 games that are coming out, where in Daggerheart, it's the hope and fear dice. And if you succeed, but you get fear, the game master gets a thing that works against you, especially like when the monsters act. And in DC 20, there's a similar thing where you have like a 4-action system, and the monsters can interrupt the players by spending some of that. And the players earning a bennie or benefit or something can give the game master things that make it worse for them. There was a role-playing game for superheroes that kind of worked similarly, where when the superheroes refuse to pay attention to their background, their dependents, their weaknesses, their normal lives, the bad guys got more benefits to harm the hero. And it played into the thing of Spider-Man taking care of Aunt May and forgetting to get her prescription, or not going to the hospital to visit her, or something like that. That would happen if Spider-Man ignored that. Then the bad guy would get a bonus to beat his ass, if that makes sense. Very meta, but also a system. We're going to get into investment and experience in just a minute. The Yanking says, that bit with players killing the big BEG with bennies, that's why monsters in 5e can magically succeed on checks sometimes. That's exactly why, legendary actions came about. That's exactly what that is. Legendary actions. Oh, the monster instantly, automatically does a thing that you can't stop. And yes, it's harmful for the players, and so they know they have to struggle through the 1 to 3 legendary actions to then overtake the monsters, and that's where it came about. I feel like it's too much of a band-aid to me, but that's just me. As a designer, it feels like too much of a band-aid. But yeah, Michael says nothing encourages the economy like watching, for example, a survivor not using their immunity idol to rip on reality TV. Yeah, yes. It's like, wait a minute, did you did you didn't use you didn't use it? Come on, that's the whole point of the game, is to use it, and of course it's supposed to, air quotes, harm you when you use it. Oh, I survive, but this other person that everyone loves gets kicked off the show or whatever, right? I don't have to participate in this game that saves me, and everyone gets jealous of me, and that's where those economies are supposed to happen. Not every game or not every table. First of all, not every game does a good job in explaining how the economy works. And then, even if the game is excellent, not many players understand how that economy is supposed to work. In Blades in the Dark, the devil's bargain is supposed to happen a lot. It is supposed to be, I'm just surviving by the skin of my teeth. I've got to make another devil's bargain. And the players are constantly fighting against this world of crime and hostility and heists and gangs, and they never seem to get to dig themselves out of a hole. And if you know how the sausage is made, it can feel like, then what's the point in playing the game, right? Like, if I can never succeed and get out of my situation, what's the point? And like a post-apocalyptic setting or horror setting, it's not really about solving the thing. It's a thin veneer over what the real game is about, and the real game is about managing your stress levels. It's about what's important and what's not important. It's not really about success. It's, what am I willing to give up? What do I want to give away and give up and burn and see destroyed to gain what I want? And was that a good decision? And then doing that cycle over and over again with your life. It's not really about succeeding. The End King says, and I think important villains should have at least a resistance to bennies, like how shield protects you from magic missile. You know what? I've never understood why games, I'm gonna pick on you, Dungeons and Dragons, again, why players get a benefit for having a thing, and the game itself doesn't incorporate a resistance to that very thing. Why is there no resistance to Paladin Smite? Why is there nothing that a bad guy can have where they can't be surprised by a sneak attack? Why isn't there a thing that can tongue-tie a bard to prevent them from inspiring other people? Now, I get it. Players are used to having their abilities, and if you take those abilities away, it feels like you're stealing something. But bad guys, the big bad evil guy, should be kind of an asshole, right? Some of those big bad guys should be the person that goes, oh yeah, you thought you were badass? I am, right? I think that encourages the hate. Wait, what? They cast me aside and are immune at least this one time against my Paladin Smite? Are you serious? Right? Like, I like that kind of thing. I know it can hurt. So let's get to our last 3 points here so that I can finally get to what you guys have to say. So lastly, investment in experience. Experience points, XP. We understand what that is. I'm combining it with investment. And what I mean by investment, this is a long-term reward. Investment can be building a sailing ship, a starship, your entourage or gang, crafting systems, skill building systems. Investment and experience, I think, are combined together as a reward system. Hey, if I survive 3 missions, do I get something for that? Do I get to go on a shopping spree? Does my alchemist get to create new concoctions? Do my experience points earn me a different level, a classic leveling system? Yes, I know an hour is almost up there, producer. Yes, I get it. The investment and experience is also milestone, right? It's like we have the milestone may be saving. Let's do the classic save the princess, save the cheerleader, save the world, right? And did we save the cheerleader? Yes. Did we save the world? Maybe no. So we get a partial we get a partial benefit. Yes, Kitty. I know you're going to jump up here. I know you are. Go ahead. Go. I'm not even going to stop you. I know you're looking at me because you know I'm going to say no. Um, yep. Mike says I'm considering. He says I'm considering removing raise. Damn, there it is. Raise dead type spells without using the reward economy. Oh, I love a no. Your character isn't dead, but you owe me something. But anyway, he goes on to say, I'm considering removing raise dead type spells without using this reward economy. Bringing back the dead should be a very rare thing, not an expectation. I'm with you. I'm with you. And the King says, "Yeah, I'm with you. It's like when Deathstroke meets the Teen Titans and makes them feel like, yes, Kitty. I know. Put your bunghole up there. Yep. When they feel like garbage. I love a bad guy that can smack me around a little bit. It also is very OSR, meaning like um, it's not an easy button. We have to creatively think about how to fight this bad guy. And sometimes that creative part could be parlaying. It could just be running away. Maybe we find something in the dungeon that can. We have no weapons to strike the ghost, right? The ghost is ethereal. We have nothing that's ethereal. But if we find out a way to excise, exorcise, dispel, placate the spirit, we can survive and get past the spirit to get to the next level of the dungeon. It's that kind of thing. And um, I once did a review of monsters for Wagadu. It was a not was it is a 5e West African setting. In its monsters, it had under every one of its monsters, it had something known as appeasement, and it was like, no, these monsters are tough, but if you can discover what appeases the evil creatures, you could possibly survive this encounter. And I remember one of the appeasements was if you find the evil spirit's favorite food that it ate when it was young, you could appease the evil spirit. And I was like, that's really cool. I like that. Yeah, no. Raising dead should be very easy if all the pallbearers assist each other. You're so but boom. Mike says movies have often told a story where the main character develops contacts and friends along the way, and they all show up in the end. Building contacts, raising armies, building strongholds, use the same riff. Yep, PCs need to build the right relationships and alliances to reward themselves like lords at the end phase. And that's where I like investment and experience. Investment could be building a stronghold, a castle, like you said. Um, at the very end, they are left alone, and suddenly Captain America is standing there, and all of his friends show up out of the portal. Right? It's now metagaming wise, it could be. Guess what? I've got 12 dice of extra success. In game, what happens is all of your allies show up. All 12 of your allies, for every die is an ally that shows up. I mean, it doesn't have to be that on the nose, but that could be how the player survived, right? And when I played a bit of 5th edition, we used inspiration like that. Like, it wasn't just, oh, I use inspiration, I get advantage. It was like, no, I use inspiration. Um, the wolf shows up from Dancing with Wolves to help me out. That we used it like that, and I like that idea. Um, so down below, under investment and experience. Oh, lastly, with investment and experience, sometimes investment can be group minded, and I like group minded investments, meaning like in a mechanized game where you have giant robots or something. Investment can be greater weapons, a protecting a mission base. Maybe you are protecting you are traveling nomads and you're protecting the caravan and making the caravan um, they have a better way of surviving or something like that. Especially in a resource heavy game, investment may be a thing like, oh, we have to leave our known haven, but leaving it means we're leaving it undefended. maybe we can invest in defenses for our haven so that we feel safer leaving it behind, so we can go out and gain resources to then come back. We see this with starship improvement, sailing ship improvement, um, base improvement with weapons, security, communications, things of that nature. Yep. Her bennies are head scratchies. And if I could put my microphone against her, she would absolutely be an ASMR 80,000 instantly 80,000 subscriber, just a purr. I wonder if you could even hear her. Let's see. Oh, I can't get it that close to her. She doesn't understand. Okay, lastly, let's see. Lastly, underneath my we have ourselves level points, and what did I do? Fail, succeed, and points, and that basically is like when you hand out the rewards, what do they get? So, does your game have a level based system? Uh, is it like fail, succeed points? I'll tell you a fail, succeed system. I'll tell you about what that means in a minute. Do you have a point buy system? Now, we the two usually the most common versions of this is either a level system or a point system. So a level system, you guys know what that means. Hey, I go from level 5 to level 6. When my character goes to level 6, I look on the chart, I gain the things that are on level 6. Point buy systems are I gained 12 points in this adventure. I'm going to spend those 12 points to increase my, usually a skill system, and or more expensive, my attributes, and or use it to spend for specialized equipment for my character or magic or something like that. Succeed fail systems are used in we talked about Mithras yesterday, which is related to RuneQuest, except Mithras is in the Orc license, so it's a free game system that's out there. It's a D&D alternative. This is in Call of Cthulhu, and there's plenty of other games. Fail, succeed leveling systems are every time your character succeeds, and not every time, you pick a parameter. When your character succeeds or fails in your skill, you check mark next to it. You notate every time your character succeeded or failed, and then at the end of the game, you either get points or die rolls to see if that particular skill gets to increase and maybe possibly decrease. So an example might be like, my character has, let's call it a D6 system. My character has a stealth of 2, and twice I tried to use stealth and I failed. I rolled above a 2 and I rolled a 3 to 6, and twice I failed. So I mark that down on my character sheet. At the end of the game, I roll a D6. Every time I fail my stealth check, I get a +1. And there are some game systems that like, oh, your character's skill increases by failing to roll the dice, which means that the lower your skill is, the greater chance it starts to increase. But then it gets like, if I've got an 87% firearm skill, it's very rare I will roll the dice and fail to increase it above 87%. So there is a built-in randomized cap to this kind of thing. I believe in Mithras, if you succeed on a roll, I don't think it has a failing system. I think it has a success system. I like failing systems because at least you get something for failing that skill check. But whatever the case may be, when you automatically get a +1 when it succeeds or fails. If you roll your percentile dice and fail against that number, it may also increase by 1d4 +1. So you at least just get a +1. So maybe your spear skill is 60%, and you failed it 3 times in the game. So at least you get a +1. But you get 3 opportunities to see if you can increase it even beyond that. So maybe you get +1 3 times. So maybe you get a plus. So it now becomes 63%. Maybe you can increase it above that. So Mike says, I might write that in, sort of a spend your entire stack to save your ass. Yeah, You stand alone in the blasted hellscape. The armies of um Acheron stand against you. Players goes all in on tokens. Yeah. As they gather for your doom, the sky cracks open like a glowing fissure in the gray sky. Sharp horns sound, and flights of Valkyries descend, led by Hildegards, whose soul you stole from hell. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Roll initiative. Yeah. I mean, um, I like the idea of using like reward systems to make an in-world thing happen. So the very last thing I'm going to talk about here is what is it? Meta mentors, methods, and story. All right, so again, a lot of experience reward systems are meta. Like in world, the character, nothing really happens. The character just gets better, and there's no maybe we might acknowledge the characters sitting around the campfire or the cantina talking about their war-torn experiences, but a lot of experience systems are divorced from the game world. Your character just got better because you hit the milestone, and we're just going to keep moving. Method systems are kind of old school, very OSR, and method systems are like, no, my character's only going to get better when in the game world I do a thing that requires me to get better. Do I train? Do I see my old mentor? Do I invest in my business? Do I reconnect with my family? Does my character perform a soliloquy or a monologue or something? Do I write in my diary? Am I out there plinking cans on the old fence to show that I'm getting better or trying to get better with my gun skill? Do I explain between adventures, because my character was a maverick cop, that I got certified with hostage rescue or sniper or negotiation or something like that, right? Like, is there an in-world thing that recognizes my character's improvement or my rewards? There is something very simple that's used in, I want to say it's Mothership. I hope I'm not wrong on this. Please correct me. I believe it's Mothership or another rules light game in which every character has a badge or a tattoo. I can't remember which one. Oh, no. Mothership has badges. The supplement to it, Dive, has tattoos. But anyway, when your character gets better, you get another badge. And that badge represents your improving skill. So if a character has a badge of piloting, and another character has a badge of demolition, and a third character has a badge of close quarters combat, not only does it tell you, signify what skills your character has, but you're actually literally wearing a badge on your uniform, or maybe it's alien. Shit, I can't remember. Anyway, but your character is literally wearing a badge on your outfit that fits within the game world. And so when in the game, if you succeed and destroy the Death Star, and you're given a medallion, a badge on your uniform, a rolled scroll, or something like that, a tattoo, you are marked, you are painted, you are given a medallion, a clasp on your cloak or something, that could represent the actual advancement of your character in world. Now, that the methods and mentors thing is a thing. Maybe your character is learning even more skills, 36 chambers, martial arts, kind of Shaolin temple kind of thing. Your character doesn't gain a level, or you can't even use your experience points until you go back to your mentor to finish your training. Hey, Luke, going back to Dagobah, right? Story, mind you, methods and mentors is a story. Maybe your character has a dreamscape. Maybe an avatar visits you when um, when you were on your near death experience and you recovered from your heinous wounds. I'm looking at you, fifth edition, without having any long term effects or anything like that, right? And suddenly, this is a thing that happens within the game. And when the player comes from their meditation, atonement, deep sleep, uh, weeks of healing, things like that. Now they're better. Now they have recommitted themselves to a new process. So these are different reward systems. Um, yes, this is maybe a little bit of an overanalyzation of a reward system. Um, do we want to reward the behavior we want to see? So, for example, in a game where, like fifth edition, that doesn't reward unoptimal behavior, do you want to see this in your game? Does your game actually have a thin veneer of action on it? But really, what it's about is our connections with family, friends, allies, each other, and how we deal with our trauma. Uh, yes, it could be that way. What's the game? Band of Blades is based on Blades in the Dark, and it's about trying to get back home after a long series of military events. The game is not about the war succeeding or failing. It's about trying to get home. And technically, it really doesn't work if you get home. It's about all the terrible things that you had to do in war on your way back home and the horrors that come upon you as you're trying to uh, get from behind enemy lines and scramble back home. And Drew says, personally, I stopped designing vertical progression systems and moved to horizontal progression. I like a horizontal progression myself as well. Thus, not stats getting better, but cadres getting new options. Yes, horizontal progression. I end up calling it lateral progression, but it's the same thing, right? Where maybe every character, I'm just creating this as a reward system, maybe every character just has 5 options. That's it. You get 5 options. When you make your character, you pick 5 options. And what happens is during your character changes over time by eliminating one of those options and gaining another option. I believe Daggerheart is essentially trying to embrace this with its card system, meaning like an example is Tarzan leaving the jungle and coming back to over civilized Euro theater, right? So Tarzan grows up in the jungle and has none or barely any, or may not even have any etiquette skills, but then gets pulled into civilized society and must learn. So does Tarzan stack more skills, or does Tarzan, the character, replace a skill? So Tarzan may have 5 great options to survive in the jungle. But when Tarzan gets moved and starts to change, gets a lateral progression, maybe Tarzan gives up 2 or 3 of those jungle capabilities to have maybe etiquette, I don't know, etiquette, entourage, and something else, great wealth or nobility or something like that. And then when he gets dumped back into the jungle, then has to give up the etiquette, the wealth, the courtly manner in order to reconfirm the survival in the jungle by being able to mimic any sound or swing and climb and jump through the canopy of the rainforest and jungle, or run, jump, and swim, just as powerfully, as toughly, as things like that. And strangely enough, like I said when I started this, I'm a hypocrite. I find that I'm actually more, I like a lateral progression rather than a vertical progression. And I find that I like that because more often than a little bit, like in level systems, let's be honest, most of the lower level stuff gets ignored as you gain in level. It would really behoove us if we had a lateral progression. And when I'm thinking lateral, it's like, no, you've got 5 slots. Fill those 5 slots with whatever the hell. Kitty, you just look really bad with your head moving up and down like that. The way it just looks really weird. Yes, Sophie Soph. Um, let's see. Lastly, before we get out of here, yeah, Mech Warrior Destiny does something like that. Experience can go to ability scores. Let me highlight it so I can actually see it past my cat's head. Um, uh, Experience can go to ability scores and skills as expected, but also toward upgrading equipment or mech and vehicles. Using experience to gain stuff is new to me, so I'm intrigued. Yes, there are uh, Blades in the Dark does this because you play criminals in a neo Victorian era world that is bounded by walls or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a neo Victorian world where you perform heists and you're criminals, and you also have a gang. You name your gang. You have themes for your gang, and when you gain experience, you can divide up your experience for yourself and your gang, your entourage, and it's like upgrading a starship. It's like upgrading a castle or a thieves guild or something like that, where you are expending experience to get stuff. Hey, my gang now all carry um, blunderbuss or firearms, because before they were just carrying wooden clubs and saps and brass knuckles. But now I was able to arm them all with one shot, slug throwers or something like that in this neo Victorian world. And there's something, again, the idea of like an investment, uh, group investment. There's a lot of players, a ton of players that love group investment. And now, mind you, much like an economy, the expectation that everyone is equally going to throw into the pot to make their starship better, their sailing craft better, their castle more defended, their thieves guild with better skills and make them more ninja-like instead of just cutthroats or something like that. You'll be surprised how much players are really invested in that kind of thing, especially if the game master threatens that vector. And I like the fact that you have another method as a game master to threaten the players. Hey, we're going to threaten your nomadic caravan. Are you, this next session, you've got 5 experience points, and the players go, hey, let's all throw in 2 points to protect the caravan. That kind of thing. So yeah. Same thing goes with high technology games, cyberpunk, sci-fi, mechanized games, mech warrior styled games, where your experience can go to improving your character with genetic modification, cybernetics, uh, um, equipment packages, things like that. Now, I will say that, like Drew was mentioning about uh, horizontal progression, um, if you have a system that uses like archetypes or building blocks, so it's not quite point buy and it's not quite level building. It's basically like in Numenera / Cypher system, you are a adjective noun that verbs, and I could see players exchanging one of their adjectives or nouns and or verb. So if you are a brilliant assassin that speaks with the dead, maybe you are now a brilliant assassin that protects the innocent, right? Like there might be something I would absolutely positively embrace something of that nature. Uh, Actually, in the OSR, when it came to like magic users and things, not only did you not have very many magic spells, but you actually had to find objects and things and people to learn more magic. And a lot of players didn't realize that, like, there was a percentage chance you would never ever learn fireball. You had to, not only when did you gain a level, did you have the possibility of finding new things, you didn't just record it on your character sheet. You had to find someone who could teach you fireball, or hopefully find it in the dungeon, which was why your magic user went out adventuring in the first place, because you might find like 3 or 4 or 5 scrolls, and then you had to copy them in your magic book, in your spell book, and there was a percentage chance that you ruined it, like you couldn't do it, or that you just couldn't learn it ever at all. So yeah, Mike says I may extend this logic to tokens being spent toward a PC's thieves guild, a cleric's church, a paladin's order, etc. Spend XP to advance your cause. I now see that's something else that I love as well. That I'm slightly incorporating into Obsidian Star, which is which I suppose you could use it for the Forged in the Dark games where you have clocks. Um, it could be like, for example, you could have a world map with like points of light on it. You know, it doesn't have to be detailed, but you could have numbers: 3, 7, 4, 6, 1, 9, and experience points could be used to increase or reduce those numbers as different empires, factions, groups raise and lower in the world and have more influence over one thing over another. I think that would be very interesting if players gained like 1 to 3 experience points, and it's like, oh, the necromantic undead nation up north is at a 7. When they reach 10, they are going to dominate the world. Like, our whole game world setting will be dominated by this particular machination. But down in the south is a religious order that considers it holier than thou. They're at a 3. Now, at the end of the game, we're going to figure out which one of these increases. Maybe you roll a d4, and you as a game master spread those points amongst which empires are rising and falling. And like maybe you roll 2d4. You roll 1d4 to see which ones go up. You roll another d4 and use that to subtract from some. So there's like this. It feels like a living world, and the players can use their experience points. They're like, oh hell no, we're not letting the necromantic council of 7 gain any power. We're going to use 3 of our points to bring it down to at least a 4. And you're like, oh, okay, all right, okay, no big deal. But what about the cult of the dragon that's out to the east? And the players are like, well, they're at a 6 right now. But I mean, we've been able to deal with them, so we're going to leave them alone. And then and the game master's like, all right, I rolled a 2. So they go from a 6 to an 8, and the PCs are like, we should have done something about. Okay, I guess we're gonna have to worry about the cult of the dragon and their dragon riders, and it would be kind of fun to do something like that, to have like the player characters, and this could be an in-world thing, like, oh hey characters, you are in the nation of Gatheron, and you are pivotal in defending its borders, and you've been gone for a while. You're going to have to come back and use your experience points to reinforce the borders. Um, Something like that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But yeah. All right, Mike, and everybody else, I've taken too much of your time. Thank you very much for being part of the show. He's like, hey, got a ride. Always a good time, DBJ. All the best, everyone. All of you, the best to you as well. Thank you very much for spending your valuable time here on the channel known as RPG with DBJ. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for letting me talk about some of these philosophical or sausage making ideas as well. Like I said, when I started this, I was just like, yeah, is there a little bit of hypocrisy in me? Pretty much there. I'm a bit of a hypocrite, and it's good to be able to challenge ourselves sometimes, and to know like where and when we sit in terms of like what do we accept or not accept in our tabletop role-playing game, and why do we do it. And while it may seem a little bit too much behind the screen, it also gives us a choice like, oh yeah, that's right, I keep wanting to have the hacking rules better in this game, but really honestly, I just wish hacking was just easier. Why don't we just make it skill rolls instead of actually having a whole side metagame because everybody else is twiddling their thumbs, right? It gives us the opportunity to look at things like that. So thank you very much, guys, for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for bringing your brilliance as normal to the show as well. And yeah, of course, next week we'll talk about all kinds of things, maybe some more reviews, whole bunches of subject matter we can always talk about. I tend not to talk too much about the goings on at specifically right now in Wizards of the Coast and games like that are being promoted and publicly designed and the dramas in that. I guess I could talk more about that. I guess I don't follow it with enough detail to be smart about it, but you guys tell me as well. So have a great weekend. Well, I'll see you 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here from me broadcasting in the Ohio Valley. Please make a note of the time that you get to see this as well. Please hit the notification button if you are missing the show as well. And also like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, hell, tell your enemies about the show. Let them come on by and see what's going on. So, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Bye. Have a great one. Peace.